guys, welcome to the channel and welcome to a little a different kind of music video today. I'm going right back. I'm going right back to my sort of childhood and my sort of real love affair for music. Now, I first got into records at a really young age. I mean, when I was really young, we used to go to a social club down when my dad used to live. We used to live in Stevenage, and he worked for British Aerospace, and we used to go to one at a place called Bragby End, and we used to go there, and they used to have an amazing jukebox in there. This is about 75 to about this video is going to be coming like 75 to about 1980, that sort of time. And I used to love sitting in what was called the Russell Bar, where they had the jukebox, and I would sit in there and I would just pump my money into it, listening to all these songs. I was really into sort of like Bowie and post-punk stuff like Ian Dury and the Blockheads and all this wonderful stuff, Dr. Feelgood, Milk and Alcohol, things like that. And when they had all these tracks on these sort of jukebox, I used to play them and play them. Now, we were quite friendly with the people that used to that owned the managers of the club. We were quite friends with them, and my mum used to work there behind the bar and stuff like that. And the manager there, I think his name was Danny, if I remember right, he used to give me, when they used to change the singles, they used to give me some of the old singles, ones that his lad didn't want. His son Simon was into heavy rock at that time. You know, I was yet to discover all that. He was into Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath and that, and I had quite a long time before I got a chance to discover that. But I was into well, my first music stuff that I loved was I had an album called Peter and the Wolf, and it was a classical album. And it was narrated by Peter Ashnorth, I believe, and it was telling the story of Peter and the Wolf with an orchestra music, and that I just played it over and over and over. And then we used to see things on TV like Top of the Pops, and I saw David Bowie, Darts, T-Rex, Slade, and I fell in love with all these sort of wonderful artists. But I could never ever afford records, guys. I could never afford them. I was a young lad. And the only time I ever got a record was like if it was given to me by like the guy at the shop, or my mum or my dad went down to Boots and bought a single for like 45p. I think they were about 45p then for a single, and they would buy me a single. But I never had any albums until a little bit later, when I was about, it must have been about 77, 78. I got a little job there. Working behind there as a little bottle boy, collecting the bottles and the glasses, washing them up, changing barrels in the cellar, and things like that. And I used to work every Saturday, every Friday evening, every Saturday lunchtime, every Saturday evening, and every Sunday lunchtime. And I got paid £2.88 an hour. I still remember it to this day. I can't remember what happened last week, but I can remember that. And so I worked about 11-12 hours, so I had about £36 to myself every week, which was rich. It was paid, you were paid there and in. There was no tax or stuff like that. I was a bottle boy, you know, I was a young lad, and I was just doing this, going out to the yard, sorting the bottles out in the right crates and to be returned and all this kind of thing. And I got £2.88 an hour, except if it was a Christmas Eve or something like that, and it was double pay. And that was amazing. So yeah, I used to have this money, so I used to start buying records. So we're going to go through some of the albums that I bought back in that day, and it was a wonderful time to be alive back then. I used to go to school Monday to Friday, work the weekend, so I didn't go out very much. My friends were all going out to like our local club, Bowes Lion House, where they used to put bands on. I used to get the odd one off, and I used to go there every single Sunday, and I caught loads of bands for the first time there. New Model Army, Jeff Buckley, UK Subs, Into a Circle, all these amazing bands. Fields of the Nephilim were the local bands, so they played there nearly every week. And I just fell in love with music. So my money used to go on albums. And of course, being around that era, I wasn't interested in buying your prog rock or your heavy rock stuff. Now I love it. Now I'd much rather buy that or the Beatles or anything like that than anything else. That's my sort of bag over the last couple of years. But I still love a lot of my stuff that I loved back when I was young, and I still finding, discovering stuff today that I love and new artists today and things like this. But I'm going to go through 10 albums, and what we used to do, me and my friend from school called John, we used to go down on Mondays after school. We used to get on our bikes and we would be out going down to the local record shop to get the latest album of our favourite bands. I remember one specifically. I mean, we were so made up because we fell in love with Adam and the Ants. I've got I don't know where it is, but I've got Adam and the Ant tattoos somewhere. I don't know if you can even see it on here, but it's just there. But yeah, we fell in love with Adam and the Ants, and we went down one week to buy Dirk Wears White Socks, which was amazing. But I also picked up this album at the same time, The Police, Outlanders de l'Amour, which was another amazing album. Really, really cool. This is obviously the CD release, the original UK release. The American release is all black with just the songs written on it. But yeah, this is the CD version of it. I don't have it on vinyl anymore. My son does. But yeah, and I just absolutely fell in love with music. And I used to spend all my money on it. I used to go down to, I used to work Saturday mornings. So I used to finish about 12 o'clock. I would go straight to the bus, the closest bus stop, and into town and view the records. I do have a few vinyls from that time that I brought. Some were really strange, and some I got was a good price, and some of them look a bit battered now. This one I got a really good price. It was on sale at our local record shop called FL Moores in Stevenage. I used to go there all the time, and this was in the sale bargain bucket, if you like, and it's called At Budokan, and it's by Bob Dylan. This was a double live album, I believe, and I've still got it from that day. Yeah, and I bought it, and it was in there because it was £3.99, and I thought, well, double album, £3.99, yes please, and it was really cool. It comes with this. It comes with that poster. Absolutely amazing. I've got this already now in my Bob Dylan box set, but it come with a double vinyl, and I'm just thinking, wow. Look how old it looks now, though, guys. The white's gone brown. That's how old it is, you know. But yeah, and here it is on CBS Records. Really, really cool. And it still plays. Well, I believe it still does. I don't have a record player anymore. Like I said, my lad was telling me to buy one. Do you remember I told you in one of my Beatles unboxings? Yeah, so it's a double vinyl, double live album, and I bought that for £3.99, and this was like on a Saturday, and I would go there, I'd check the bargain bucket, and sometimes I'd buy albums by artists I haven't heard, but I've heard of them, and if it's at a good price, I'll pick that up because it's cheap. But most of the times I picked up albums I love, and my first ever David Bowie album I bought from there was Changes One Bowie, and I still own it to this day on vinyl. I've still got my original vinyl that I brought down on the shop. Yeah. Crazy, right? The things you just can't part with. But I loved it because it had the pictures of all the Bowie albums, and I just thought, I used to sit there thinking, oh, the next one I'm going to buy this one because it reminds me of the man that fell to earth and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, and I've still got that on the RCA label. Yeah, absolutely wonderful to still have these. And I used to buy them. No, I didn't always buy albums. I did buy 7-inch singles or 12-inch singles. And this one I bought was was a live 12-inch single by Echo and the Bunnymen called Shine So Hard. And look how much it cost, guys. Look, £1 5p. Crazy, isn't it? You know, and this is again original from when I first bought it. And it had all this sleeve, lovely vinyl, really, really nice, crisp looking vinyl, really nice, great sound to it. Yep. So it was a 4-track live LP. See, 4-track single. Expect to pay around £1 5p. And in fact, the manager there, Andy's name was, he sold it to me for I think 95p. Because I go in and I buy. He knows I bought loads of records. He used to get out all the local albums and new stuff to show me what I was interested in. But yeah, me and my friend John, we would go down on a Monday after school and we would buy albums and stuff like that. We had the same sort of music taste. And one album we both loved was Uprising by Bob Marley and the Wailers. It was just such a cool sounding album. It was such a deep reggae bass sounding album, like almost like a dub sort of reggae sound, a really deep bass, and we loved it. It was such a cool album, and it was one of the albums that made me really appreciate Bob Marley. Obviously, before then, I owned a 7-inch single called No Woman, No Cry, which was live. I think it was recorded live at the Lyceum, if I remember right. It's from that album. But yeah, because I had that single from the jukebox that was given to me free. And another single that was given to me free from that jukebox was a single that I absolutely fell in love with, and it was called Gangsters by the Specials. So when I could afford it, I went and bought their debut album, the Specials, which is absolutely a fantastic album. And the first track was Gangster, and I remember going, "Oh, I've got this song," you know, because I was quite blasé about vinyl and just thinking, you know, it's the same song I've got. I was all going to be, of course it hasn't, Job, because you've only got 2 songs on that one, and it has like about 12, 14 tracks on that album. So yeah, I went and brought the Specials, and I went round my friend's John's house, and he had one of those record players that was like a suitcase, High Fidelity, I think it was made by, and it was brown and black, and you opened it and took the lid off and you played records, and we went round there and we played the Specials, and I absolutely loved it. And just to prove, like, even into the early 80s, my love for ska carried on. Look at this photo. And here we are today with the same album. I still own the same album, but this time on CD. What a great memory. Yeah, but what a great album as well, man. I loved the first album. I did buy One Step Beyond first, but this one, I don't know why, I just sort of like was so chuffed to get it. I remember it came out not long, like about a month or so before my birthday at the time, and I was just thinking, I'm not going to get this album, I'm not going to get it. It's out because the record, it was quite popular, it sold out in my local shop, and I didn't think about that time, let's go to WH Smith's, because they sold records, and Boots, they sold records, Woolworth, they sold records, and we had all 3 of them in my town. I think I did check Woolworth, but they didn't have it. It was quite popular, and I couldn't get it. But on my birthday, there it was. I got brought it by my mum and dad. They bought me the album, so that's why I look so happy in that picture. Here he is again. But yeah, it's a great, that holds a lot of memories, that album, because it was bought to me by my mum and dad. Sadly, I don't own the vinyl no more, but I do own the album on CD, so I'm dead chuffed to still have that. So as you can see, I had a very modern taste at that time, but I also had a very strange taste, because I bought Brian Eno album, Apollo, because I was really starting to discover artists like Jean-Michel Jarre and early Kraftwerk and things like that, and I was really interested into that electronic sound. So as you can see, I was in a very punk post post-punk sort of era. I was really into that at the time, and I didn't really delve into much else until I started to see things on Top of the Pops or the Tube, or Old Grey Whistle Test sort of came on in the sort of late 70s, early 80s. The late 70s was the Old Grey Whistle Test, and that's why I got to see bands for the first time, like early Japan and things like that, and obviously Tubeway Army. But yeah, Brian Eno, they were playing it. I remember they were playing it in FL Mall record shop, and it was just sort of, it was so dreamy and just so dreamscape sort of sounded. Never heard nothing by it, and I said to Andy, "What's that?" And he goes, "It's Brian Eno." I goes, "Well, who's he?" You know Brian Eno. He plays with Roxy Music and he's done some work with David Bowie and all this. I thought, I've never heard of him, but I like that. How much is it? I think it was $2.99. So I said, well, I'll have that. Put that in my pile. So I remember buying that one. But yeah, every Monday there I was on my little orange racer, you know, handlebars. So I was down there, steaming up and down the hills, all the way to the town to get these records on a Monday or on a Saturday after work. I used to just go on the bus rather than that. But yeah, I used to go down after school because I thought, because school finished at 3:30, shops finished about 5 then, if I remember right. So I only had like an hour and a half. If I wait for a bus, I could take longer. If I walked, take longer. But my bike, I was in town in 10 minutes. Locked it up. Got stopped by the police once on my way back because I didn't have any lights on my bike, and they told me off. I said, "Oh, sorry, you know, that was a winter time," and I got told off. And I remember what I brought. It was a comedy album by Mike Harding called Comic Cuts. I was really into comedy at this time as well. I was really into Mike Harding, Jasper Carrot, and all these amazing comedians, Rowan Atkinson, Lauren Hardy. And I brought this album called Comic Cuts, which is fantastic because he's different. He's a bit of a folk singer. So he would tell loads of big, long, drawn-out jokes, but then he would play like a folk song, with a comedy folk song in amongst them. And this is like it's a live album, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And it's still funny today. It's still really funny. Some of the content's a little bit risque today, but there you go. But also some artists I like, probably most of you are like this. They always release new albums that you always want, but no, you can't afford, you know. So I went through lots of those. Toya was one of them. She released the album Anthem, and it was always overpriced. I just couldn't afford it. I just thought, no, I just can't afford that. And she released the live album Warrior Rock, and that came out, and it was like $5.99 or $6.99. But it's a double album. But to me, that was a lot of money. But in the bargain bin for $1.99, they had Toya. So this was the first Toya album I bought, which is a live album from some of her early career, because I wanted a Toya album, and it was the only album I could afford at the time. There they are. And I remember buying it. That is the cover, and that is the back cover. And I remember buying it, and I listened to it, and I loved it. I was just thinking, oh my God, all these songs she's making, It's a Mystery and all this, which are great. Thunder in the Mountains. But this is way better. This is got lots of keyboards, and it's quite it's different in sound. It's quite proggy, actually. It's quite a prog album, quite prog when she was first started. But some of it even sounds like really early Marillion, you know, when it comes to the music side of stuff. And it was just something completely unique, and I fell in love with that. And I had a Pill album, Public Image Limited, a few years later with the same sort of cover, but I think it was live in France. Can't remember, but it reminds me of that cover. But yeah, I bought that because I couldn't afford the big albums. But I fell in love with this. Now I own the big albums. I still love this one more. Isn't that crazy, right? Because sometimes you just think, oh yeah, I've got to have the latest album. You've got to get that. I've got to get that. And then if you just wait and think, well, that's a bit, you know, back then, you know, you had the money, you know, I mean, I had money, but obviously before then, I got that job, I only had pocket money. So I used to, you know, it'd be like £1 a week, guys, which was a lot of money back then. And I used to save like a month and I would have £4. That was enough to get an album. So I was lucky to get about 12 albums a year. But when I got that job, I had about 2 or 3 albums a week. Because although I was still earning 30 odd quid, I still gave some money to me mum. And I still wanted some money for other things, you know, sweets, you know, chocolate, and buy my mum stuff. I used to buy my mum a chocolate bar called Old Jamaican, which she used to like, which is dark chocolate with rum and raisin flavour. She used to love that. I used to buy her sweets and stuff like that. Comic books I used to buy, and Looking. And then there was a magazine called 45, which was all the song lyrics. Don't know if you remember that, but that was all the song lyrics to all the songs. I used to buy that. So I used to want a bit of money for things like that. But the rest of my money went on records. Again, I had like a little portable suitcase record player that was bought for me. But when I started to heavily get into records, my dad upgraded his hi-fi and he gave me his old one, and it was old, but it was really rich sounding album. It was in this massive, huge kind of cabinet, like a sideboard, like a brown sideboard, and you lift the lid up and down, and inside was a turntable. You open the door there, and there was my amp, and I had big speakers that my dad attached to my room, and I was just in heaven. But then obviously as I got a bit older, I left school and got my first jobs working as a grave digger for the council, and then I worked cutting grass for the council, and then I went on to work at Our Price Music. Then I had money, so then I bought my own new hi-fi. Anyway, that's a little look at my love affair of music. It started before then, but this is when I was able to buy albums. Before then, it was just ones that were given to me, either as gifts or from the jukebox, or I bought those really rank, or my nan used to buy me those albums, Top of the Pops. Do you remember them, with like a sexy looking girl on it? But all the songs on it weren't performed by the original artist. It was just the songs performed by like I don't know, probably a band in the studio. So the company KTEL, whoever it was, Pickwick, could make a bit of money off these songs, and that's all I used to have. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little look back. If you have, let me know and I'll do a bit more. Cheers, guys.